All right, this is my new to me Quilter Aviator Cub. This is a 50-watt solid state Fender style amp. It's got 3 inputs for tweed, blonde, and blackface, and basically emulates those 3 types of amps by Fender. You saw me pick it up there. I really like that. It's about 21, 22 pounds. It's got a 12-inch neodymium Quilter designed speaker in the back. It's got an onboard digital reverb that sounds very good, effects loop, line out, headphone out, and it sounds really nice. I bought this because I did not have one amplifier that would do everything. I play sort of a variety of gigs. I play in some pit orchestras around here. I get hired on to play some solo stuff and some duo type stuff, and I really wanted an amp that would cover everything. I have a Yamaha THR 30, which is a very good practice amp and sounds really good. But when you try to use it out live, it's got some disadvantages. It really does sound better as a practice amp. And I really wanted to have something that would work out a little bit better. And the Quilter is what I came across. I watched a lot of videos about this amp before I bought one. And the reason I'm making this video is because a lot of those videos are very good, but I think there's a couple of things that they missed that I wanted to cover. So here we go. Okay, here's the control panel on the Aviator Cub. As you can see over here, you have 3 inputs. Then you've got your preamp section, gain, limiter, EQ, an effects loop, and your reverb, and your signal volume and your outputs. Now, here's something to note. The headphone amp and the line out are both controlled by this knob. If you turn this up, you get more of each. I used this recently and had an in-ear monitor basically coming off the headphone jack in one ear for this. And it was okay, but I think I had it set at about 11 o'clock or so, and it was pretty hot in my ear, but it was what the line out needed. I would prefer that the line out is a line level, never changes, and that this signal volume really would just control the headphone amp. That's really the only thing that I have a problem with on that. The sound guy that was on that, it was a pit orchestra in a big auditorium. I gave him the line out, and we used the speaker volume basically just so I could hear what I was doing. He said it's perfect. It is absolutely zero noise. He had a good sound coming out of it, and you know, in a situation like that, you got, 150, 200 people in a big echoey auditorium. Volume is the enemy. You want to, as a sound guy, you want as little stage volume as possible, and this did a really nice job with that. So, the gain and the limiter. The limiter is the thing that makes this amp a little bit different. The gain is, and with the speaker volume control, it's like a master control volume amp. The limiter, it's a compressor, but it doesn't really act like what you think of when a compressor happens. It is supposed to help the amp feel more like a tube amp. Kind of give it more of that sort of sag feel that you think of, and maybe we're not always completely aware of that a tube amp does. But tube amps compress like crazy. So this allows that to have that sound without necessarily sounding like, you're putting a Dynacomp on it and trying to do country stuff. I'm sure it'll do that if you crank it all the way up, but that's not something that I aspire to. The equalizer controls, they're active. At noon, I think they're basically nothing added, nothing gained, and then you got to cut and add. I find myself, and this is probably just my personal preference, but I find myself cutting the mids pretty much always, a little bit of boost here, and then the treble is what really gets moved around, okay? Now, an amp in your home, when you're playing by yourself, you're probably going to want more bass. If you're playing in any kind of band situation or anything like that, you probably need a little less. You don't need much bass if you have a bass player. Don't get in their way. And it's really nice that you don't lose a lot of character in this amp when you cut the bass. The treble, I think, works very well, but it is very sensitive to what input you're going on. the Tweed especially, it's just a real kind of dark, woolly sounding amp, and you really need to work with the treble on that. The Blonde a little less so. And then the Blackface, to me, that's getting to be what I think of when I think of a Fender amp, and the treble control works the way that you think it should. I also use the effects loop, works great. Like I said, it's a very good usable amp, and the learning curve on it is very easy. There's really, I mean, if you've used amps before, you won't have any trouble with this at all. Okay, now this is my little Squire Strat that I bought very cheap and then added a lot of upgrades to it. Got it sounding pretty nice. Everybody needs a Strat. You just never know. And for me, there are two usable positions in a Strat, which is the neck pickup and position 4, which is the neck and middle. Those are the two where I live. I every once in a while will use the humbucker and the bridge, but it's so bright and sharp, I just don't care for it that much. So right now I'm on the Tweed setting, and I got something pretty clean dialed in. Pretty nice. Let's take a look at the position 4. Pretty good. The Blonde setting. A lot brighter. The bottom end's a little bit tighter. It's got a little less of that raucous sound, but you know, it sounds pretty good. Position 4. Not too bad. Blackface setting. Now this is where I think this amp starts to really shine. To me, this is, when I think what does a Fender amp sounds like, this is what I think of. Now I will say with the Blackface amp, it is got a lot more headroom. It stays clean much higher up. So if we go back to the Tweed setting, because right now I've got the limiter up at a little less than 9 o'clock. I've got the gain more like 10 o'clock, but we're going to crank the gain over almost all the way. You can hear it starting to buzz a little bit. I'm going to back it off that just a hair. The limiter I bring up to at about 10 o'clock, bring down that master volume a little bit. And we're on the Tweed. And you can hear it really comes alive. Got a real nice sound to it there. The Blonde setting is even better, I think. It has a little more brightness to it. Are you here to help? I know, I'm being loud, aren't I? For me, for the distorted sound, for the Strat, I like this. The Blonde, I think, sounds really nice. You can back off the limiter and push the gain a little bit more if you really want to, you know. It's a little bright, so you can bring down your treble. Sounds pretty good. The Blackface it doesn't break up nearly as much, still sounds good, but at this point, if you like that Blackface sound, you need more gain, you're probably looking at putting a box in front of it. Still sounds really good. I do not have a guitar that has regular size humbuckers in it. This has mini humbuckers. They are not Firebird pickups. These are actual mini humbuckers. I don't particularly care for full humbucking pickups usually, but this one sounds really good for a humbucking guitar. You can hear it's a lot darker, so you really got to push some treble. That's the tweed setting. It's okay. I think the blonde is much nicer. Also cleans up pretty well. Gotta get the volume way down there. Sounds pretty good. And then the black face, once again with the high gain. So pretty nice. Alright, now this guitar is my baby. This is my Gretsch. This is an Electromatic made in Korea, 2015. It's all stock. These black top pickups that the Electromatics come with, I think sound fantastic. I think the blonde for the high gain on this guitar sounds really, it's probably my favorite for high gain. Still a little bright from that last guitar. I think that sounds really good. Black face sounds really good. So, one of the things that I like about this amp too is the way the limiter works. So, if I turn the limiter all the way off and I crank the gain up, I mean, it's got some gain. It's never going to be a high gain amp, but, and I do pull it right off the very top. But what you're supposed to do apparently is you take the limiter and you start bringing it up, so you kind of cut out that fizziness. Sounds pretty good. I like the limiter at about 9 or 10 o'clock. And then the gain, you know, you can adjust for how much you got. One of the really good things about this amp is no matter if you change the gain a whole lot and the way the gain works with the master volume, it still pretty much sounds like the same amp, just, you know, hotter. I think for this kind of higher gain, I like the blonde. That sounds nice. And then you can clean it up. If I put the gain at about 1 o'clock, bring the limiter up just a little bit, adjust on the volume. Probably just a little more mids and a little less treble. Sounds pretty good. Now, and that's the blonde setting. If I want to really get that Fender sound, and then the reverb, I've got it sitting at about 9 o'clock for all of this. I move it up to about noon. Sounds pretty good, and still got a little bit of growl to it, just a little. Now, once you get the maximum amount of reverb I think is useful is about 1 or 2 o'clock, because getting quite a bit here. Hear those tails, they're a pretty long tail on that reverb. Now, you can get really splashy reverb. You can, like, if I turn this all the way up, you can surf guitar territory. But it's so much, and I think it gets, when you get past about 2 o'clock on the reverb, it's kind of brightly tuned. I think it starts to get in the way of the notes a little bit. So about 1 o'clock or so is good for maximum reverb for me anyway. Sounds all right. Let's get a little more gain there, maybe a little more limiter. Pull that down. But as you can see here too, as I'm adjusting, all the adjustments are easy. If I want kind of that Brian Setzer, I'll go to the middle here. That's pretty good. And I mean, that's still a lot of reverb. You can pull it down. Sounds pretty nice. I probably can get a little more treble out of that. So, very nice. And then, you know, if I need that to be a little dirtier, well, I'll just drop it over to the blonde section. Tried it on tweed. I think the tweed's a little woolly for it. It's okay. I really think the blonde and the blackface sound the best for that, though. This is the real reason that I bought this amp. This is my jazz box. This is a Gretsch G100 CE. It's got a Johnny Smith Bartolini pickup in it, flat wounds. I love this guitar. It sounds so nice. And this is the kind of stuff that I don't get out and play very much, but this is what I enjoy. This is what I really like to get out and do. And I wanted an amp where I could just show up with the amp and the guitar and a chord, and in 2 minutes be ready to go. And this amp fills that need. And, you know, I love tube amps. The Fender Twin, you know, most of the old guys played the Fender Twins back in the day, but, you know, that's got 80 watts. It is incredibly loud. And you still have to get it up to a certain volume until you get to the sweet spot. It'll stay clean all day, but at low volumes, I don't think they sound very good. This sounds good pretty much wherever you set it. I think you have to get it right off of the volume floor. But once you're sort of in that usable range, which is a low range, it sounds great. And then it sounds great at a very high level of volume. I think it sounds fantastic. There's no tubes to break. There's no tubes to fall out or get loose or rattle. You don't have to change them every few years. You don't have to, you know, if you stick it in the garage and it gets cold, you don't have to worry about it. It's just fantastic. Okay, so what's the verdict on the Quilter Aviator Cub? Should you buy one? To answer that, I think you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. What is the amp going to be used for? Is it going to be a gigging amp? Is it a bedroom or studio amp? And I think the question that you have to ask on that is, well, how does it sound compared to a comparable tube amp? To my ears, it's really, really close, but I think it misses just a little bit of the warmth of a tube amp. And as with most solid state amps, it's got just a little bit of harshness on the pick attack on the very front of the note. But it's way better than some solid state amps you've heard that I think have a very, very harsh kind of transient sound as soon as the pick hits the string. Now, I use really hard picks, so that's just something I have to live with. And as far as the warmth goes, there's just something about that tube amp sound that's just got that real cozy warmth. But this is very, very close, okay? But if you're to A and B them next to each other, I think you'd probably say, man, the tube amp, it does sound a little bit better. But if you're going to take this thing out and gig with it, those differences, to me, they go away. I played in a pit orchestra with a bassist, another guitar player, a grand piano, and 2 saxophone players a couple of weeks ago. And all those things that you can, you know, when you're sitting in front of the amp in a room and you're playing, you can't really discern those things when you're working with other musicians. Not to my ears anyway. It sounded really nice. It was very consistent. The sound guy loved it. A line out on an amp is an absolute godsend for your sound guy. dead quiet, no microphone, there's no bleed. It makes it so much easier for him to do his job and mix it. And I had mine turned up just so where me and the other musicians could hear it in sort of our circular space, but it was not pointed at the audience. So he had a really nice sound to work with that makes it a lot easier. Like I said, I do wish that signal volume control, I wish it was just for the headphone side or just for the line out, but it controls both. That's a slight nitpick. That is one thing I'd like to see that's a little bit different. But you have to remember something. Number one, this is a modern, solid state amp that's going to be dead reliable. Tube amps, especially old ones, they break. The tubes fall out. The tubes wear out. I've had vintage amps, and you literally take your life into your hands if you have to go in and change capacitors, especially those big old filter caps. They call them the death caps. It's not something for an amateur to do. And they wear out, and you have to get them serviced. They cost a lot of money in some cases to have the maintenance done on them. And if you have any kind of tube amp that's, pushing anything above 25 or 30 watts, when it comes time to retube it, you're looking at a few $100s, and that may be getting worse all the time. It's a one-time purchase. I got that Quilter Aviator Cub used from Guitar Center, shipping and tax for about $550. And remember, it's basically 3 different amps. That's a tremendous value, a huge value. And my other big selling point on this thing is it sounds good at this volume where, say, a comparably sized Fender Deluxe, they sound fantastic, but they're up here. And there's not that many places you can play, not anymore, where you're really going to be able to turn that amp up here, and get that tube amp really singing the way that you think it should sound. So I think it's a tremendous value. If you're looking for an amp that is super reliable, that is 22 pounds, so it's so easy to live with and deal with, and QSC has a really, really good reputation for quality. Remember that Quilter is the Q in QSC. I got this thing a couple of weeks ago and plugged it up, and it's so easy to start getting good sounds out of it with every guitar that I've got. So give it a shot. They sound really nice. They're very, very close to a tube amp, and they do everything that a good tube amp does with a lot of the disadvantages done away with. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.